Welcome to this webinar, and we'll get underway. ESS BIZGrants has been developed to assist accountants to identify government grants that their individual small medium enterprises might be eligible for. Let's go back to where we were there. So basically the system works by you entering some information into a client profile on your individual clients, and the system will then identify the grants that those clients might be eligible for. You then need to answer a few more questions for those various grants, and if you believe that that's the type of grant that your client could be interested in, the system will then, on your instructions, produce a report which has your firm name on it and your client's name, so that you can present a very professional looking report to your client. So within the information we're going to go through, we can get some basic client information, and we're going to look at the potential grants that are available. The system has a link to the appropriate government department website so that you could go on and look at the application form so that you're very familiar with the grant. There is a grant toolkit which includes a paper on that particular grant, and in some cases some additional information. It might include a list of their national skills needs list that's very important for the various apprenticeship grants, or most of the apprenticeship grants. Or it might include a supplementary summary sheet on the information that's required as part of the grant application for that particular grant. Unfortunately, there's no common methodology of documenting government grants. They're produced by about 20 different federal government departments, and then we've got each state and territory government also has grants. So there's no consistent approach to the various definitions. Even definition of what might be an eligible small business varies between the various departments and obviously between the various state and territory governments. So each grant has to be looked at on its own merits. And we're going to have a brief look at our website. So we believe BIZGrants is a quick and easy solution to finding government grants for individual SMEs that you as the accountant can use to help you in your relationship with your client. We believe this is an excellent way to introduce non-compliant services or business advisory services to your clients, because it's still to do with governments as such, and it's probably not that big a move away from income tax type work. The system's developed by ESS BIZTOOLS. ESS BIZTOOLS has been developing non-compliance products for accountants since 1998, and the software has been developed by Real Advantage Solutions. So the sort of information we're looking for on individual clients to go into the profile is their corporate structure. Corporate structure is very important. Are they a company, an incorporated trustee, a sole trader, a partnership, or a trust, and a few other type of structures? Does determine whether they're going to be eligible for a grant. There is no doubt that the company structure is the most popular when it comes to the draftsmen of government grants, the people who draft the grants. But there are some grants that an individual or a partnership or a trust can apply for. Corporate trustees is an interesting situation. Some of the federal grants are now allowing corporate trustees to be the applicant. Turnover is important. There are various turnover levels within government grants. You're all familiar with the research and development $20 million figure. The benefit changes then at $20 million. But there are turnover levels for other grants. Enterprise Connect have got turnover levels ranging from $750,000, $1 million, $1.5 million. Export Market Development grants have got an upper limit of $50 million. In general, the type of businesses that we believe that ESS BIZGrants is targeted at is businesses with turnovers up to around $100 million. And that is where most of the government grants sit. The type of business is very important because the grants have been drafted to suit particular industries, and location can be very important because at times the grants are targeted at specific locations. Employee numbers come into play in some grants, particularly some of the state and territory grants, and period in business, years in business is becoming more important. Enterprise Connect, which is arguably the largest grant in Australia on an individual number of grant recipients basis, requires the business to have, in effect, to have been operating for 3 years because it requires the business to have lodged 3 annual business activity statements. So after we put the information in, you're going to be given a possible grants list, which you then have to work through, which I'll show you in a moment, and you can get assistance from the grant toolkit, etc. As I said before, there is a direct link to the government websites. So what we're going to do now is go on to a we've now gone on to the website. Go to client profile. So when you go onto our website, you can view a number of items. You can scroll through and look at some details on some of the individual grants. You just find the grant name and click on it, and it will give you a brief summary of how that grant operates. So this one's one of the apprentice. There are 9 different apprenticeship grants been offered by the federal government. A number of them require an occupation to be listed on the National Skills Needs List, which this one here for apprentices over 25 is requiring, and we have that National Skills Needs List listed in the material. So you can just flick through and read about the grants if you wish. Click on them. These clean technology grants, most of them are under a very large cloud at present. The new government has basically indicated that they want to close those grants down, but they've been administered by a separate organisation that was funded by the previous government. And at this stage, they seem to be still actively looking for grant recipients, but the Oz Industry website is indicating that the Clean Technology Grant Program has closed. So I don't think I'd be wasting too much time putting grant applications in for clean technology. We've left them there because officially at this stage they still exist. So we'll just go back so you can work through. I just wanted to show you that that exists so you can review a brief profile of each grant if you wish. We're going back to client profiles. We'll add a new profile. So I was going to call this business Valley Motel Proprietary Limited. I was playing with it before. So in our choice of corporate entities, we have got quite a range there, but this particular business is a company, so we'll accept it as a company. Now, then you've got to answer these basic questions. Do you export or products? We say no. Do you import? We say no. How many employees? We say this business has got 19. Do they have an ABN? Yes. They won't get a grant under what we've listed in ESS BIZGrants unless they have an ABN, because this is for businesses. We'll say they've been operating for 12 years. Their annual turnover, I was told, was $2,967,000. So we'll just enter that. Their annual expenditure. Now, expenditure is an interesting item when it comes to Enterprise Connect. An applicant can qualify by exceeding a monetary figure, which for a motel is, or a business in the tourism sector, a narrowly defined tourism sector, is $1 million. So, but they can qualify either on sales, business income, or expenditure. So you could have a business that's virtually got no turnover, but has had a very large expenditure outlay. They might have been doing research and development or building a pilot plant. Can't imagine that's going to be the situation that applies for a motel. So, but it obviously can apply in some areas. So we'll say that this motel's got expenses of $2,800,000. Are they registered for GST? We'll say yes, because I think we've got too many noughts back up there. Are they tax exempt? If they're tax exempt, they won't qualify under this particular area. This product, ESS BIZGrants, is not for profits or charities. Are you involved in research and development? We'll say this business isn't. And are there concerns about financial vulnerability? Now, what we're meaning there is financial vulnerability from a government employee's point of view. Their main concern is that a grant recipient goes into liquidation or has a receiver appointed within a very short period of time after the ministers announced the government grant. It's not a good look. I don't like it. That's what the question is. It's not a question that might relate to debtors' days outstanding, as one firm interpreted as, and because the debtors' days outstanding was about 70 days, which is a worry, I must admit, but it wasn't the sort of issue, unless it was going to tip the business over, that would cause you to answer yes to financial vulnerability. Because if you answer yes to financial vulnerability in ESS BIZGrants, it will not show you any grants, because that's the attitude of the government departments. You're not going to be eligible. So we'll say we haven't got any financial vulnerability questions. If we hit next now they want to know where we need to put in now where we're operated. So I was going to call this hopefully a fictitious address, and you can see I've already been playing with this. So we'll call it Inland Highway, and we're going to put it at Coolangatta. And it's in Queensland, and the postcode for Coolangatta, I believe, is 4225. So we've identified where the business is, and we'll save that. We could insert another location for this business if the business had another branch somewhere. Now, this is particularly important for a manufacturing type business. It might have an office in one location and its factory might be located somewhere else. That could mean that that second location where the factory is might happen to be in a location that is eligible for a grant. Now, we now need to go to what type of business are we in? Well, we're a service. They're the selections we get under the ANZIC codes, the Australian New Zealand Industrial Classifications. So we are going to say we're in the service provision industry, and we then have the 17 industries to select from. Well, we're in accommodation, we're a motel, so we'll say accommodation, and we'll add that, and we're now finished that basic information. Doesn't take that long, probably about 6 minutes at the maximum, and our suggestion is a member of the team working on a client's affairs should enter that information. Incidentally, if you have any questions whilst we're going through this webinar, could you please type your question in, and in webinar jargon, raise your hand, and I will answer the questions a little later in the webinar. What we have now is that for this motel, and I particularly picked on a motel because some people say to me, they have trouble finding grants. Well, there's heaps of grants out there, and as you'll see here. So this business could get a grant for potentially 13 items match. Now, a number of these are apprenticeship grants. So we might say, okay, we're interested in an adult apprentice. As soon as you click on the name, you then get some grant details. So it tells you that what this grant's all about. It's available for someone aged over 25 to upgrade their skills, but their skill must be on the National Skills Needs list. And we're saying that list's available in the Grant Toolkit. So we go to the Grant Toolkit. The Grant Toolkit will give us a paper on how the apprenticeship scheme grants operate. So there's a paper out of ESS BIZTOOls which explains the operation of the apprenticeship grant system in Australia. The skills needs list lists the trades that the government is giving special assistance to, because these are the skills that have been identified that there's a shortage. So when you look at some of these, there's some jobs that could apply to a motel. We've gone through and analysed these. So there's a cook that we would have allocated as a motel, and there was a pastry cook. So obviously we're raising this because they may have a kitchen, may not. You will know the client. We're just trying to identify some of the grants. You can see most of them are in the manufacturing type industries, although there's obviously others that are not, stonemasons for argument's sake. But you've got that there, and I skipped funding details before, so there's the funding details. For this type of apprentice, an adult apprentice, the employer could get paid $4,000. Now, we then need to go to some additional criteria. The system has identified out of the profile the grants that this business might be eligible for. By going to the additional criteria, you will then be asked some additional questions to try to narrow down whether this business is really eligible. Now, on this one, there's only one question. In some of the others, there can be up to 8 additional questions. The average is about 4 questions. Is your business proposing to employ a person aged over 25 as an apprentice to upgrade his or her skills to certificates 3 or 4 in an occupation listed on the National Skills Needs list? So we've had a look at that. We've decided, yes, we do have a kitchen, and we wouldn't mind an apprentice cook. And if that person is over 25, that's all right, so we'll click yes. What the system is now going to do is to change that pending to you are potentially eligible now for that particular grant. It's also given us this apply now box, so if I clicked on that, there is the URL for the government agency that supervises apprenticeship organisations. And if you click on that, it will give you the addresses of the 300 odd organisations around Australia who service the apprentice market. And you could see in this case who was the closest service provider for apprenticeship in the Coolangatta area, and you could talk to them. But we'll go back to results. Now what's happened in results, we have this other heading called potentially eligible, and we now have one grant that's under potentially eligible. So we'll now go back to pending, and we'll have a look at some other grants. Now, you might decide that the client then is probably not interested in some of these other apprenticeship grants that they could have been, either because the skills need list identifies them, or a couple of these grants any business can get a grant for. So if you employ an apprentice with a disability, doesn't matter what sort of industry, you can receive a grant. And the same thing applies for mature age workers over 45. Skill-based apprenticeships, we can just have a look at that. It hasn't got any restrictions, so a skill-based apprenticeship can apply to any type of apprenticeship. The Australian Bureau of Statistics is some free information that's available. It used to cost about $8,000 7 or 8 years ago, but the then government made it free, so there's some very interesting information there that you might be able to use in the business. Now, what we have then, this is in the tourism industry. Enterprise Connect have got a grant which they call Continuous Improvement Program, and you can have a look at that and get the grant details, but you must have completed stage 1 tailored advisory service before you're able to go into the stage 2. So you might look at that, decide that you can talk to your client about that, but there is a further grant they can apply for. But at this stage they're probably not eligible. And because this hypothetical business is in Queensland, we've identified that there's a Queensland government support program called Mentoring for Growth. I happen to be a facilitator for that program. It involves businesses that have been pre-reviewed by the business department within the Queensland government, and they are invited to make a presentation to a group of mentors. The whole process takes 1 hour for them to outline what's concerning them in their business, and then the mentors, and it can be a group of people with a number ranging from 6 or 7 to 13 or 14, give them their feedback. Best number's about 6 or 7, but sometimes you get a few more participating. That's a free service that's quite beneficial for the businesses participating. Enterprise Connect has got a group activity, so that you can read here what it's saying is that companies must be operating in the tourism industry and can submit an application to Enterprise Connect to be involved. They have to be from tourist accommodation, so this business it's a motel, tourist attractions, business of offering a local food or beverage tasting experience, operational tours or travel service. So a group can be involved. Their turnover only needs to be $500,000, and they can be eligible to get a grant of up to $20,000. But the grant for $20,000 is only if your turnover is over $1 million, and the group must have a minimum turnover of $2 million. So what you could do is put together a group of a tour operator, a travel agency, a motel, and a business that offers a local food and tasting experience. And if their turnovers were all over $1 million, you would satisfy the group turnover limit, and they would each be eligible for a $20,000 grant on a 50-50 basis. So on that basis, there'd be $160,000 in the pool to do work that will improve their overall business. It might be a marketing plan, it might be a business plan. That type of project will need project management. That's ideal work for accountants to undertake. So let's say we've had a look at that and we think, oh, well, what else have we got here? Now, the one I've really been looking for is the tourism sector located anywhere in Australia. Now, if you read this, you'll see that it must be in the tourist industry and must have $1 million turnover. We satisfy that. And we're in tourist accommodation. The other key thing is that the company must, just highlight this, the company must derive a significant portion of its revenue from tourists who have travelled for around trip distance for at least 50 kilometres from home and would cease to exist in its present form, or would be significantly affected if tourism were to cease. So you might say to yourself, well, that's the sort of grant that this client could be very interested in. Also under Enterprise Connect there is a researchers grant. I'm just mentioning this for other clients, probably doesn't apply in a motel, but we could get a subsidy of up to $50,000 on a 50% basis to employ a university researcher to undertake a specific project to help install something. So the funding details we've looked at, we can get up to $20,000 on a 50% basis. You can then go to the toolkit, and if you want to read the paper on how Enterprise Connect operates, you can get the paper and read it so you understand a bit more about what this grant's all about. When we established ESS BIZGrants, we did so on the urging of David Smith, the CEO of Smith Inc. 2020, who had discovered when he was doing interviews of small, medium enterprises that one of their key criticisms of accountants was that accountants were not keeping them informed about government grants. But part of the brief that David Smith gave me at that time was, you've got to prepare this so that accountants don't have to become experts in government grants unless they want to. So we've included the material here so you can read it, so that the client won't catch you out, but you don't have to do the in-depth analysis. We've done that for you. So here's now a particular paper on how the tourism sector section of Enterprise Connect operates. There are a whole range of other Enterprise Connect grant industry recipients. There they are there. A very widespread of industries. At times I've heard accountants say, oh, none of their clients would be interested in grants. I've really got to challenge that, because SMEs are on the main that I can find are looking for grants, and there are a large number of grants out there. Unfortunately, a large number of small, medium enterprises are missing out, primarily because the accountancy profession is not keeping them informed. So there are definitions, of course, as to what is a business within this tourism sector. So we'll move on. We go to the additional criteria. There's a few questions there, so we'll better have a look at it. Has the business previously received a business review funded by Enterprise Connect? Now, if we answer that no, the system will then go on and ask us the next one. If we'd answered it yes, we would have been told that we were not going to be eligible, because you can't apply twice for a business review. Is the company's prime trade in that? We'll say yes. Does the company derive its income from tourists who have gone on this 50-kilometre round trip? We say yes. Was the company's revenue at least $1 million in the last 12 months? We say yes. If tourism were to cease, would the business cease to exist in its present form or be significantly affected? We answer yes. Now I'm going to give you an example if we answer it wrong. Has the company operated in Australia for the last 3 years? Well, we answer no. Oh, and I missed one up here that I did answer it the wrong way. Is the company's primary trade. So in two instances I'm getting the example I wanted to show you that we'd be ineligible, because one of the key traps in this is if the prime trade is retail, cafes, etc., they're not eligible. So we change that now to no, and we say, oh no, we made a mistake here, this business has been operating for 3 years. So we've changed it back, so it's now saying that we're potentially eligible. So if we go back to results, and we look at potentially eligible, we've now got the two grants there, the apprenticeship incentives and the tourism sector. So we say, okay, we're ready to have a conversation with our client. They're coming in to have their accounts review, and we're going to show them we've been very proactive. We can produce the grant report. It's got their name on it. It's got your name on it, so it's the name of our subscriber's name comes up there. You've got a brief synopsis report, summary of the funding, and there's a disclaimer on the bottom which basically says that all care is taken, but they've still got to go through the application process. We are in the process at this stage of finalising version 2 of ESS BIZGrant, and that version is going to automatically print the name of the accounting firm also into the disclaimer, as well as ESS BIZGrant's name. So that's how the system operates, so that you have that final report to be able to submit to your client. Obviously, the whole process varies on the type of industry that your client belongs to, and there will be various grants, but there are a large number of grants. They're continually changing because you've got, as I mentioned at the beginning, federal government and the various state and territory government organisations all activating grants and withdrawing grants at various times to suit their own particular requirement. I'll just check again to see if there's any questions. If you have any questions, can you perhaps send me an email later on and let me know what they are, and we will get back to you and answer them. But that is the summary on ESS BIZGrants. As well as supplying the material and keeping it up to date, we produce a monthly alert on issues within grants, and we're just finalising the December alert at present. It will be dispatched to our subscribers later on today. So the subjects that are covered are talking about Enterprise Connect now allowing corporate trustees to apply as well as companies. We've given an in-depth summary of how researchers in business grant operates, because this is a great area for a client that has a particular technical issue that they want incorporated. They can temporarily employ a highly qualified person to assist them to get started or do what they want to do, maybe do a bit more research. We've summarised the minimum turnover levels for Enterprise Connect, which do vary on the various industry grants. Most of them are at $1.5 million, but there's a couple at $1 million. That's creative industries and the tourism sector. And if a business is located in a remote location or a very remote location, and the locations are determined on the Australian health industry maps, then the businesses there only need a turnover of $750,000, and they can be operating in any sort of corporate structure. So an individual, a partnership, a trust, can apply for any type of business. So an accountancy business based in Alice Springs or Mount Isa can be eligible to apply for Enterprise Connect grants. We also, in our alert, supply a link to the recording of our webinar that we ran for our subscribers on the 5th of December, which examined the Enterprise Connect grants in some detail. And we also refer to our non-compliance news for accountants, which we've been sending around for the last 4 weeks. And we also have a list of the disaster grant deadlines for claim applications to be lodged. Now, at this stage, there's only disaster grant applications outstanding in New South Wales and Western Australia. Unfortunately, we're at the time of the year where natural disasters occur, and each month we include a reminder for our subscribers on when the grant application deadlines are fast approaching. So that's the type of service that we're providing for our subscribers. We see our role as being an extension of your office to keep you very much alert of what is happening in the government grant space. So I can't see that there's any questions. Thank you very much for participating in this webinar today. If you think of some questions later on, we would love to hear from you.